Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Technology Evangelist podcast, sponsored by Medidenta Digital. I'm Dr. John Fluke, and today I've got another techophile, tech lover doctor here with me today, Dr. Chris Griffin. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Man, John, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. I've admired your work from afar, so great to finally talk to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I've kind of kept track of a little bit of what you're doing too, so this is going to be nice. Chris, I always try and start off with a bit of an origin story because I think it's much easier to understand where people are going if you have a map of where they've been. So tell me, how did you get to this point? Like what got you into dentistry and what got you into tech and 3D printing and all that?
Well, hey, so stop me if I start boring you. But yeah, so I started out college. I'm from Mississippi, so I went to Mississippi State University. I went to engineering school in the very beginning, just primarily because I thought if you were good in math and science, you were supposed to be an engineer. I don't know why I thought that, but I thought that. And so I got to Mississippi State and I realized, wait a minute, these guys sit around in a cubicle all day, which, it's okay, but this just wasn't my thing. So I started searching for other things that might fit. My family dentist said, "Hey, I bet you could get into dental school. Have you ever thought about dentistry?" And there you go. So I actually went to the University of Tennessee when I was 20 years old and started then and got out in 1998 and went into practice here in my hometown. I chose to come back home. Had some opportunities to go other places, but I just have this deep down desire to stay in this area, which I'm actually, I'm work 7 miles from where I grew up. So that's where I'm at. My folks are still around, so I love being around them. And so I did that from 98, 99. I was an associate, and then that kind of fell apart. I know a lot of dentists have had an associateship that fell apart, so mine did too. And hung a shingle in 1999, and in 1999, I declared I'd been working in kind of a high volume, heavy PPO practice, the associateship year.
Right.
And the guy had some technology, but I just didn't want to work like that, I thought. So I said, okay, I'm gonna do everything the opposite. So at age 25, 26, then I decided to open a completely fee-for-service cosmetic practice, went out to LVI and did all the Dawson Continuum and in every class I could go to, joined the AACD and tried that for several years. And you know what I found out? I found out that in Ripley, Mississippi, population less than 6,000, half the population on Medicaid, that kind of practice is really, really tough.
Yeah, I can well imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, so like LD Pankey, he perfected his skills in Kentucky and then he went to Miami and did all that stuff. But
Right.
so then I said, okay, well at this point now I've got some kids and I'm not making a lot of money and I'm working my tail
No.
off and also found out that the people with high cosmetic desires they're really picky about the results, which I'm
Right.
fine with that, but they are, and it's just tougher. And
Yep.
I was doing okay, pretty stubbornly, wouldn't quit that. And then in 2009, a flood came, the 400-year flood,
Oh
flooded my
gosh.
flooded my practice. It didn't wash it away, but it got up in the building, had to be down for a couple of weeks. Get Serve Pro out and all that stuff.
Right.
And so while I was off, I sort of rethought things, and I said, you know what? Maybe your dreams of being the best cosmetic dentist in the Mid South maybe right now you just need to make some money because I had the family and stuff.
Right.
So yeah, during those 2 weeks, now this is how I operate, John. I went from totally fee for service and I joined 20 PPOs over the 2 weeks. So
Oh my God. You were a busy guy.
so I go and some of them are giving us $450 a PFM back then, right? So
Right.
it was
Yeah.
yeah. So I was so then I was like, okay, I'm not making a lot of money per patient, but I've got a lot of patients. So how do I handle
Yep.
that? So then I developed a bunch of efficiencies, and I went back kind of to my engineering background and studied, lean management and the Toyota way and all that stuff. We color coded everything in the office. To this day, everything's color coded in my office. Wrote big old manuals and trained everybody, and really we started making a lot of money doing it that way, and it was great. But I was working so hard, I was going to kill myself, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
so then my next thought is, okay, could you be so efficient that you could go from 5 days a week to 4 days a week? And eventually we went to 3 days a week, and we still kept our income up very high because of the efficiencies we developed. And so I was really, really happy with the way I was practicing. Things were
Yeah.
going great. And then so I'd actually, even my building had grown from a 3-op practice up to a 14-op practice as just me. I was on roller skates, just
Wow.
going op to op. Now I had some technology, but really we didn't have time to use it.
Right.
And then in 2013, lightning struck my building and burned it to the ground.
Oh my
I
gosh. A
know, right?
flood
I
and a
know.
fire. Oh my
I know. So
gosh.
so so this time that's way more serious.
Yeah.
So this time I was down for 16 months. Now I did practice, but I had to go and move my stuff into a little 4-op. Me and my cousin, we renovated a nurse practitioner's office that was 7 miles from town, and built a little tiny dental practice there. So went from 14 ops to 4 ops for 16 months. My
Wow.
staff went from 14 staff to 6 staff. I lost 75 plus years of dental experience after the fire, not because, but people just couldn't. I'd been paying bonuses and stuff, and we just couldn't make
Right.
the bonuses. We just couldn't make the money. And so during the 16 months, I had a lot of time to think about how I wanted to redirect my practice again. And so once we finally rebuilt, we still do, I mean, a fair amount of volume. We dropped 17 of the 20 PPOs. We built a very robust in-house membership. So now in a town of 5,500, we've got, I think, 880 members of our practice as
Nice.
this week. And so gradually trying to get back to fee for service. But, you're small town, you hate for the teacher
Yep.
and the police and stuff not to be able to use their insurance and you be in the plan. So you just kind of deal with it. And that's when I started getting into technology too. I got my first CIRIC, and when we got back from the fire. And so we got into in-house milling that way, and we were doing all the basic stuff, not really high technology. But then during COVID, when we were off for 6 weeks, then that's when I decided to invest in 3D printing, because I'd always really kind of, as a hobbyist, liked 3D printing, but I never really
Okay.
applied it to dental. And so during COVID, got all the 3D printing stuff, started printing, in-house everything we could, still milling our crowns, but we
Mhm.
started 3D printing our dentures and everything, temporaries, models, everything you could do, doing our own ortho cases in-house with the clear aligners. And then, as a caveat, another high technology piece we got into was the laser, got a biolaser. And so we got
Okay.
into kind of laser dentistry and the 3D printing and the milling. And so I've slowed down as far as volume, but my percentage of larger cases, what I call a large case, has gone way up. I think due to the fact that we can do a lot more in-house and stuff like that. So man, that's kind of how we got here. And it's been a crazy journey, but I was just talking to a guy. It's weird, John, is since I started dental school kind of early, a lot of my buddies are
Yeah.
retiring or getting bought out and in their buyout phase. And it's just weird, man, because I grew up in a time when, solo dentist, you'd go out, hang a shingle, and by golly, you'd fight the elements and you'd just go for it and do your
Yeah.
own thing. And it's just not that way. Sometimes I feel like I'm a relic of the past, but I don't have any desire to quit. I mean, I love what I do. So why would you quit?
No, I think that's a great point is, I mean, I always tell young patients, they're getting ready to graduate from high school, I mean, move on or whatever. I'm like, don't don't follow the money, because when you follow the money, you can have some nice things, but it truly is the old adage of, money doesn't buy happiness. So you got to do what you love. And if you do what you love, it's never really work. I mean, I've always said that I feel like I get to go in and, talk to folks and do something that I enjoy. And at the end of the day, somebody hands me, money. And I'm like, well, this is the best thing in the whole world. This is like getting paid to go to Disneyland. I mean, I'm enjoying myself. And so, yeah, I mean, if you can keep doing it, um, heck, I'd keep doing it. I'm still at. I sold my practice 2 years ago, and I was really lucky. My best friend, his daughter went to dental school, and last year they called me up and said, "Hey, would you be willing to, spin her up and teach her how to do it?" She worked with me for several years, and then I sold to her, and it's the best of both worlds now. As I get to go in, I get to do what I love, and I don't have any of the headaches of the business aspect of it, or the staff part of it. But I've got a lot of friends like you that just like handed somebody the keys and said, here you go, um, do with it what you will. And I just couldn't do that. I couldn't. I like it too much. I couldn't just walk away from it. So kudos to you. Um, you said something near the end of your story, which I think is really huge, is that you're doing milling and you're doing printing. And I think a lot of people that are kind of, looking at the landscape now, trying to decide what they want to do, I think we're seeing a great big shift in the industry with the idea of the bread and butter stuff you now can do in-house. The complicated stuff you can still send out and have a lab work with you on that. Um, so you had the mill. What got you to the point of jumping into 3D printing since you were already like milling things? And I'm sure that was very successful. So what was the thought process of then jumping from mill to print?
Well, I really just had the Cyric mill from
Hmm.
2013 until COVID times. So really,
Right.
you're talking about one tooth, maybe a
Yeah.
short bridge if you had to, something like that. And so I just wanted to be able to do more complicated stuff. And so actually, when I got into 3D printing, I also I got a disc mill for zirconia, and then you can also disc mill some resin stuff, some PMMA
Right.
and whatever. And so we really, we really do pretty much anything in-house now that you can do, except like you said, I'm a general dentist, and so I do pretty much everything. However,
Yep.
thank goodness there are specialists because I'm so happy sometimes to send someone to a specialist. So if it's a really tough anterior case, I'm gonna send it to a specialist. I'll send it to a good dental lab. But most everything else we're doing in-house.
So what kind of 3D printer or printers do you own?
Whew. So I started out with an Envision Tech
Okay.
first, and it was very slow.
Hmm.
And so then I moved in. I bought the big package from Sprint Ray, the big
Right.
printer curing unit, and I bought it back when there was no thing as a wash unit, so you had
Yep.
to manually wash your prints off. So it made it a lot more nasty, right?
Yeah,
So
and
that
a
was
lot less fun.
yeah, so I got my first sprint ray. We started really doing great with that, and one of the big wins I found early on was, I was doing clear correct and Invisalign,
Mm.
and so every time I did a case, I was paying them 2 grand, and then if we had a
Yep.
mid-course correction, it was out of the office for 3 weeks or something like
Yeah.
that. And man, in Ripley, Mississippi, that was making me have feel like I needed to charge 5 grand to make any money on the case,
Right.
and that's just more than most folks were willing to pay. And
Right.
so, really, I thought, well, gosh, if I can print my own models and figure out how to design the models in sequence, then I can do it a lot cheaper. So we got our total overhead on our clear aligner cases down to about $300. Uh,
Wow.
and yeah, so I mean that's with labor and everything. Like I'm counting the labor that my staff. I have staff members that we only work 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, terrible hours. That's what we do. And so on Thursday mornings, my staff comes in and does some stuff like I've got one staff person who makes the models for the clear liners and poly, whatever, does all stuff
Right.
like that. So yeah, so that's what we found with the sprint rate. Huge, big win, big win. Then then I actually purchased a Strawman printer, which is like a
Okay.
P20. They're partnered with a company called Rapid Shape, I think,
Yep.
in Germany, and so it's really the Rapid Shape printer. It opened up. You can do a lot of different resins that opened up. It's more of an open source system than the
Yeah.
Sprint Ray is. So we can do some cool stuff with that. Its build plate's not the biggest, so you can't do as much volume. Sprint Ray is your workhorse, the old Sprint Ray at least.
Yeah.
It's your big workhorse. And so I've got frozen printers. They're very inexpensive. The reason I got into frozen printers is because I've done over 20 3D printing boot camps. And so
Wow.
I have dentists come to my office and I'm trying to teach them how to 3D print, but a lot of them didn't have 3D printers yet. So what I had started doing was giving them a frozen printer to take the course so that they could follow along and at least have something when they got back to their office. Really
That's
not.
genius.
Yeah, well, really, well, I don't know how genius that was, but because they are more complicated, but it gives them something to start with,
Yeah.
and then I always said, look, you're probably going to want to upgrade this when you get more into the 3D printing. But the last printer I bought may turn out being my favorite. I got an Asiga, which the reason I got the Asiga is because I'd heard so much and seen some good examples of these Lucitone dentures. Because we do a lot of dentures, and we use the Sprint Ray resins, we use the Rodin
Right.
sculpture resins. Um, the Rodin sculpture resins we recently used in Mission of Mercy when we're doing dentures. We actually, as a sidebar, every year we go to Mission of Mercy in Memphis and we make flippers and immediate dentures for people so that they have something to go home with when they're getting their teeth
Wow.
extracted. Last year we did 28. I think our best ever is 33 dentures in one day. So that's moving, right? Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, I saw the Lucitone dentures look great for like I'd always been looking for what I would consider a lab quality denture that gets really close to the qualities of PMMA. And PMMA gold standard, hard to beat it. But boy,
Yep.
the Lucitone dentures are close. I don't have long-term longitudinal studies, but I do know that at least going out the door, they look amazing. They look really good. So fingers crossed that those are good long term. So yeah, that's kind of the printers I have. You know, I will buy a printer. It's hard. Do not let me go to a trade show and see a deal on a 3D printer. Is all I got to say. So I will have the printer in my office when I get back.
Well, I love it because what I'm getting from you really is like you're a tinkerer. I mean, you were 3D printing before you were 3D printing for dentistry. I mean, you were 3D printing just because it was fun and it was interesting. And I've known so many people in my career that either wanted to be engineers or were considering engineers. Like I've even met a few people that, got a degree in engineering, worked for a while as an engineer, and then just didn't like it for whatever reason and went into dentistry. I think that mindset, it it really helps you problem solve when you have that kind of engineering mind. I got into 3D printing uh, like you did. I bought one off of Amazon, uh, and I didn't realize it when I bought it. It was cheap, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" And then the surprise was it was cheap because it came unassembled, and it took me a day to
Right.
put it together. But I had the time of my life, and it was just fun doing it. Um, and then when the resin printers started to get a little foothold in dentistry, I was like, I got to get one of those because I'm just enjoying this too much. And the one I had was an extrusion printer, and I knew that wasn't going to be dental quality. Uh, and with the resins and stuff now, it's just and you said something else too about the resins, which I think is interesting because there are like Sprint Ray's a closed system. Everybody knows that, or if you don't, you do now. Um, but I love having open systems where I can try other things and just, print something and see, does it look nice? Does it seem to hold up? And when you're locked into one system, it's much harder to do. Um, so I give you credit for that too. I'm a big fan of open systems. What do you use to design your projects?
I started out, just the simplest thing was blue sky bio,
Mhm.
blue sky plan.
Yep.
There's a guy named Corey Glenn. Got to give a lot of credit to Corey. He was into this before me, even though he was 2 years behind me in dental school. He was ahead of me in this. So kudos, Corey. And he is the man, by the way. Like, if you talk about specialists, like I would still consider myself kind of a generalist, although most dentists that aren't into this think that what I'm doing is really cool.
Right.
Corey is the master. That dude can do some stuff, especially if you're talking about, all on X denture cases. I highly
Yes.
recommend anything that dude's got going on because he is the man. So we used Blue Sky Bio for a long time, and Blue Sky Bio, by the way, they still sponsor my workshops, and we use their software in the workshops. Kind of like we use the frozen printer and we use the pack dent resins because
Right.
it's just easy. It's a good open system. Pack dent's an amazing resin, and so we use that. So we started out with Blue Sky. Now, you know, as time goes on, I wanted to see what else was out there.
Sure.
So we, like I said, I joined 20 PPOs over 2 weeks because I wanted to see, do a different direction. So I couldn't figure out. Everybody talks about let's either get 3Shape or ExoCAD, three
Right.
shape or ExoCAD, and I'm like, I can't decide. I bought 3Shape first, but then I ended up getting ExoCAD too. So we got both. so
Okay.
so we do both. But I'm loving the 3Shape. The 3Shape software for dentures makes very realistic looking denture teeth. So I'm really on the upswing on 3Shape. Really like it. It's outstanding. So anyway, I mean, like I say, I'll tinker with whatever
Yeah.
needs to tinker with. ExoCAD is also outstanding. I've just got my ExoCAD dongle, which, by the way, John, does it seem to you like maybe all these high technology companies, why are we dealing with dongles these days? It just,
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, come on now. But yeah, so I just got my ExoCAD dongle. I may think their denture teeth are better than 3Shape in 2 weeks. Who knows? But
Yeah.
anyway, so we're playing with both of them.
Well, and the design thing I think is just so critical because I I love to tell the story of I went to the ADA meeting in DC, and I don't remember what year it was. It was like somewhere between like 2015 and 2017. And at that point in time, I saw my first dental 3D printer, and I thought that was just the coolest thing ever. And so I asked the people, it's like, how do you design stuff? And they pulled out Blender, which you might be
Oh,
familiar with.
right.
And,
Blender for
I
dentists.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and that is so complicated.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
it's like Photoshop, and if you don't use it constantly. But anyway, my point in this is that it was so complicated, but now the design thing, what I want doctors to know is if you were like me and you looked at it, 5 or 7 years ago, and you were like, I don't have the time to learn something this complicated. The design process now, that was I think the big bottleneck in the whole thing was okay, I can print stuff, but I got to figure out what it is that I'm going to print. And now the design software that they have gotten so much better. They're so smart. They've got so much AI into them that a lot of times the design process is almost just like clicking the next button as it does everything for you. Do you
That's
feel
right.
that way?
Yeah, and a lot of them have a wizard. Most of them have a
Mhm.
wizard for most things these days. Now, once you get good at it, you probably think you can go into advanced mode and do a better job than the wizard. But there's
Right.
nothing wrong with wizard mode. And I tell you what else, John. Here's what I tell my docs when they leave my course. I'm like, look, the last thing I want you to do is get overwhelmed. So if you've got to send off and purchase a design just so that you can 3D print it and post process it, assemble it in your office and deliver it, that at least you're doing that much. The scanning, at least you're scanning, and at
Yeah.
least you're post processing. Hey, farm out the design for now till you get good at it, and then and you're still not really the design. Really are not expensive, not that expensive these days. So it doesn't add that much to your overhead to let someone else design it, and then you just print it and go with it.
Well, and I think that's a nice backup to have because for a lot of the things that we do in my office, I've got the team doing the designs and other things because they love doing it. But if you ever do hit a snag where somebody's sick or whatever, if you've got a lab that'll do the design for you on the back end, and you send them the complicated things, and then maybe for 2 days you have to send them everything. You're not struggling, you're not down. And then plus, if you've got a lab partner like that, you can keep the easy stuff for yourself and kind of, gradually get better, as opposed to jumping in and, trying to eat the elephant in one bite and, do complicated things right off the bat. I mean, everybody struggles and stumbles anytime you learn anything new, and this is no different. So I think having a lab that can do those kind of things for you is a great safety net. Even if you're really good at it, you never know. Just in case, it's never going to hurt to do that. What lab do you use for those kind of things, or do you have several that you have designed for you on those oddball cases?
Well, if I had something super, super, super hard, an implant case, I would send it to Corey. Corey Glenn's got his own lab. We
Yep. And by the
we
way, just so you
actually
know, and so everybody knows, I'm working on getting Corey to come on here and talk to me. We haven't got a time set up yet, but I do want
I'm
to get him
sure
on because he
I'm
is
sure
the master.
I'm sure he's exceedingly difficult to deal with. We're from the same place, so he's probably very aggravating. He might be out hunting rattlesnakes or something in Tullahoma, Tennessee. You never know. But dude is a straight up genius if you get him on here.
Yep.
So yeah, don't he may say, boy, Chris is a dunce. Why was he on here? But but we actually, John, I've got my dental I call her my 3D dental auxiliary. She was my first. She was a chairside assistant back in 2000, and then she worked her way up to being the clinical team leader, and then during COVID, she became the whole office manager. And
Right.
after COVID, I moved her upstairs and just made her in charge of my courses and also our internal lab. And so she's actually so good. We have an internal lab, and I don't really send anything out anymore. I do for really hard ortho cases. We will send a case out sometimes to a company called Archform, and they do a really good
Okay.
job of designing the sequential stuff. But here's a fun story because like I say, I teach these courses. I want people to have a quick win and be
Yeah.
successful, and sometimes they just can't. So for people that came to my courses, we would say, look, send us your designs. We actually started in a lab so we could, do all the FDA stuff so we could do it right. And so send us your scans and we'll send you back the design so you can print it. And if you have trouble printing, we'll walk you through it. Well, here's what I'm
Wow.
finding out, John. Man, the scanning out there in the dental world is not optimum. So it is challenging. Man, we need in fact, instead of having 3D printing boot camps, I probably should have been having 3D scanning boot camps. We
Can
need
see
people
that.
to understand what a good scan looks like because it is impossible. It is impossible to get a good. I had a good guy, good dentist. He sent a case this week. He sends me, okay. I thought he was sending an immediate denture, which we can knock out of the park every time. So he sends a complete denture, which is really hard, but okay, fine. We can work through it. Let
Right.
me tell you what he sends for a complete denture, John. He sends a scan of the upper, which is not good, and a scan of the lower, which is only about 75% of the lower arch.
Oh my gosh.
And he doesn't send a bite. And so I called him and I'm like, hey man, what'd you do for a bite on this? Or do you just want some wax rims or something? And he said, oh, I thought you had some magic way from the scans that you knew what the bite was.
Oh boy.
So
Wow.
So I think unfortunately that is probably the knowledge of the general basic dentist when it comes to 3D printed dentures is they think, okay, I've got this amazing scanner, uh, you know, Shining,
Yeah.
Trios, whatever, and it scans and now voila, boom, Star Trek replicator. Here you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Here's a beautifully in Pete Dawson occlusion complete denture from a bad scan of the upper and the lower.
Well, and it's funny with the scans. I remember, gosh, early in my career. I mean, this was when I was still taking impressions, and that was decades ago. But I work with a small local lab, guys my age. We've worked together, both of us, and I've been with him since he opened. And I think I started with him about 2 or 3 years after I opened. But anyway, um, I send him an impression. He sends me the crown back. I try the crown on, didn't fit right. And so we had lunch and we were talking about it. And he said, did it fit the model? And I was like, oh yeah, it fit the model like a glove. And he kind of laughed. And I think it's because we're buddies that he can say this. He's like, if it fits the model, that's the best I can do. Said I can't make it fit something, with information I don't have. And I don't know why it was like the big shaft of light came down. And I was like, okay, I think dentists, we tend to, whenever it doesn't fit, we blame the lab. But in reality, they're just dealing with whatever it is we send them and trying to make it work. And at that point in time, I thought, I think the lab guys are a lot better at what they do than we give
Oh
them
yeah.
credit for,
Oh man.
because
Yes.
most things fit. And when I started really paying attention to looking at things, I was like, yeah, if I had to make a crown on that impression, I don't think I could do it either. And the great thing about scanning is you can blow it up and look at it on the screen. So yeah, I think, people learning how to scan, not just, getting the thing and opening a box and plugging it in and just, you know, cutting loose it. You've got to understand what it's doing, what it needs, how best that, it can, how do you hold it, or what do I need to do as far as margins and stuff to make it just crystal clear to this thing?
Oh yeah.
Because it's not a rabbit in a hat. I mean, you have to work with them. So I'm with you 100% on that.
I'll tell you a funny story, John. And this just illustrates this is why I'm not putting myself up on a pedestal. So my lab here at my dental office is upstairs. So periodically throughout the day, I'll walk up here and see Lupita. She's the amazing tech. I'll see what Lupita's up to. What are you making? Whatever. And so she had this crown prep on number 15 blown up, and the scan was just terrible. And I'm like, well, I said, you can't make a crown off that. You may as well just tell them, whoever it is, tell them, look, you have another scan or something because
Yeah.
it's not going to work. And I said, who sent us that? And she said, that's our scan.
Oh,
So my staff downstairs. And so, and so,
that's a
so
humbling moment, isn't it?
yeah. So what I have discovered is so I mean, I'm just like everybody else. If I'm in a hurry, there's times that I do not want to pull out like the diode laser
Yep.
or the biolays to do the margin. And I'm just like, okay, this one's going to be good enough. We'll use some
Yep.
X-Facil and we'll just do it. But pretty much every time I don't pull out the laser, my staff, for whatever reason, after we coach them like crazy, but still they get in a hurry too. And I understand
Yep.
that. And it's just, you're never, as the doctor, if you're not seeing what your scans look like, you just don't know. You just don't.
Exactly.
So, and most don't.
Yeah. And I think that's, one of the things about scanning is a lot of people, and I do this sometimes. I call it prep and go. I prep it, and then we've got expanded function assistants, and I'll go do hygiene checks or see another patient or whatever it is, and then like 3 hours later, I realize I never looked at the scan, and the assistant does the scan, and then they either, we're either milling it, or if it's something complicated, they're sending it out. But a lot of times, I think they're like, oh yeah, this is good. I can use this, or anybody can use this. I don't want to bug him. He's got, three other things going on. And those always seem to be the time when it comes back to bite you,
Right.
when you don't see it. Um, or if you just never look at them, if you just trust your assistants to do it. But, I mean, information is power. And if you don't have that information before it goes, then, you're at the mercy of the fates at that point in time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I found, and this happens I guess my office is a good incubator for me to know what goes on in real life practices, because just this week, my main assistant, who's the most outstanding at really complicated like roundhouse temps,
Mhm.
she's out
Yeah.
for a little while with a medical deal, and so I have another assistant
Oh
who's
boy.
amazing, but she's not really great at roundhouse temps because she's just not. The other person just
Yeah.
does them all. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah, absolutely.
so we had actually 3D printed the temps because I'm like, okay, that did shell temps pre-printed, kind of like
Yeah.
Glidewell used to do. We do that all the time with our 3D printers. But on a roundhouse shell temp, it's tricky to get them to fit. Well, she had played with that for 30, 45 minutes and it still wasn't going down, before she ever came and got me. And I'm
Right.
like, I mean, I could have got this thing down in like 5 minutes or less, if
Yep.
they just hate to bother you. But
They do.
sometimes they'll just waste chair time and by this time the patient's waking up and they're in a little
Yeah.
bit of pain. So it's just a worse experience. But you just have to always try to keep your staff feeling like they can come get you without bothering you to make
Yeah.
sure everything's 100% right.
Yep. Yeah. Don't throw them to the wolves. That's kind of one of the things that I tell my team a lot is, I always, and that's exactly what I say. I'm like, I'll never throw you to the wolves. And because what you don't want is you don't want to have somebody that maybe is, a patient that's just hard to work on. I mean, there's some people that, they're not doing it on purpose. They're just difficult to get access and difficult to see and all that stuff. And I don't ever want them to feel like, oh yeah, he's done his bit. He's going to get out of here and just leave me in here, to, handle the rest of this as best I can. And, you know, the, I don't ever want them to feel like I don't want them to feel alone because if they can't do it, you got to know you can't have them winging it. I mean, that's not good for the practice. It's not good for the patient. It's not good for the assistant. So yeah, I think checking them and letting them do things, within their skill set, letting them, work with it for a little bit, work with it, if it's not going in 10 minutes, come get me or something, because otherwise then you're just telling them they can't do it and they need to come get you. But you got to make some mistakes, and then kind of learn, maybe watch you do it and then be like, oh, that's the magic thing that I didn't do. And then they learn from that. But it's all experience. My grandpa used to say experience is what you get 5 seconds after you need it, Chris. And when I was a little boy, I didn't understand that. But man, when I got into dentistry, it became abundantly clear.
Yeah, you're like, whoops.
Yeah. Yeah. Never going to do that again.
Oh, I forgot to tell you another cool piece of technology I got just
Yeah.
this year is a dental microscope. I'd
Oh,
never
cool.
never had one of those, and so I got one of those. But the reason I'd never gotten one is because I didn't like the having to look in the binoculars. I wear
Right.
glasses. Every time I'd ever been at a trade show and tried one, it was just so aggravating. But they came out with these new microscopes that actually shoot a 3D image up on a big flat screen right in front of your face. So you just sitting
Wow.
upright looking at this flat screen with your 3D glasses on. You can see, like for endo and stuff, you can see way down in the tooth. Gosh, almost to the apex on straight teeth. And so I've been having a lot of fun with that. But that is probably slowing me down because now that I'm putting stuff under the microscope, I'm always finding ways that it could be better.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so that is another cool thing that I have recently installed in the practice that, man, I wish I'd have done it a while ago, but they've just now, as far as I know, come out with the 3D flat screen. So I'm probably glad I didn't get the old one and hate it and just never want to
Right.
do a microscope again.
Yep. What manufacturer is this, Chris?
I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's Sailor, Seiler.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it says I mean, you talk about most of the time when someone installs new technology in your practice, it takes a while for you to be able to use it.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
man, this microscope, they shipped it, unboxed it, put it together, and we were using it the next day. And
Wow.
I mean, this thing is the easiest to use thing I've ever had in the practice as far as high technology.
Well, and you get to the whole thing of, one of the reasons that I've always been so big on mag is, it affects your posture, it affects how you access things. It's just better for your body. And I mean, a microscope sitting upright and being able to look at a screen and then just, not even have to twist or turn or anything like that. It's got to be, I think that's probably like a career saver, I would think. How long did it take you with this microscope to get to the point that you felt kind of comfortable working off of the screen and not looking at your hands?
Well, I still will look down at my hands, just out of reflex if things get tough. But
Sure.
probably 2 weeks. 2 weeks, you feel pretty confident.
Okay.
Like a root canal quicker than that, because if you've got a rubber dam on somebody and you've got it positioned well,
Yep.
it was like probably the week we got it. I was feeling pretty comfortable there. And by the way, man,
Okay.
it is so much easier to find MB2 canals with a microscope than with loops. It's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah, totally. I've got a microscope. I mean, I've had it for a long time, so I don't have the whiz bang models, but I've done endo with 6.5 loops on, and I got them just for endo, and it's still not the same as the microscope. I mean, the high res, what you can see out of a microscope is just crazy. And then plus the other thing too is, the higher you go in mag on your face, every time you move, everything moves with it. And
Right.
sometimes when I was using the 6.5s, I'd hold my breath because even just inhaling and exhaling would move me just enough,
Yes.
and I was
Yes.
like, this is crazy. And I'm like, patients would be like, why are you gasping? And I'm like, well, they're like, something wrong? And I'm like, no, actually, I'm zoomed in so tight that if I breathe, it moves around in the image and I can't
Yeah.
see as well. So I think having that screen would be, I got to check into this. I didn't even know they made these things. So
Oh,
I'm
yes, it's
a
amazing.
little
Yeah, you
chagrined that
should
I
have
didn't know,
you should have
Chris.
been doing root canals with the pulse ox on your finger to make sure you didn't get hypoxic and messed up, right?
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. My brain's eating so much oxygen and I'm starving it at the same time. That's not a recipe for success. That's really cool. I'm gonna have to check this out. I love mag just in general. Um, but I was curious, that's why I asked about the screen, because I've had some people that I know over the years that have had back problems, and there was a, I don't think it's on the market anymore, but there was a camera system called MagnaView, and it was on an arm. It was kind of like a track light, and then you'd find what you wanted to see, you'd zoom in on it, and then you'd work on a screen. Um, it's kind of a halfway of what you're doing now, but a lot of my buddies talked about it. It took them a while to really get to the point where they could look on the screen and work. So, hey, props to you for figuring that out so quick. That's really cool.
Well, hey, like you said, John, I will eventually I'll make enough mistakes that I'll stumble upon the right answer every time.
Yep, yep. My motto kind of is, I break it, then I tell people about it, and then they learn. Don't do the stupid things I did.
Right.
Right out of the gate. So, but I mean, mistake how you learn. You learn so much more from failure than you do from success.
Oh
And
yeah.
and once again, I think it's the engineering mindset. You tinker and, well, okay, that didn't work. Let's change the variable. Tinker with this and try that. So, are you 3D printing permanent crowns now?
Well, now I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. So yes, I have done it.
Yeah.
I have done it. And I'll be also straight up honest. I have not yet bought the pressed technology, like the Midas with Sprint
Okay.
Ray. I decided not to
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
because when they first came out with the crowns that legally could be billed out as APCs, the resins,
Hmm.
I used them and I just felt like the milled crowns were still better. Now
Yep.
those resins are great, but I just felt like the milled crowns were better, and I haven't used the press technology yet, so I can't speak to that. I have done it in a course. I went to a course myself and used it, and it still looks great. But I guess after I experimented with the first generation of those resins, I just in my mind thought there's just no way this is going to be better than a milled crown or a milled onlay or something. And so I decided to sort of wait until I see more proof that more proof of that. It was one of the first resins that came out. I actually did a test in my own office and I did 20 crowns out of it. And within a year, I had replaced 19 of them. And so
So
that
you
was
are.
one of the
Oh,
very
go ahead. Go
first
ahead. Keep
crowns.
going.
Oh, so that was one of the very first resins. It's just so 19 of the 20 failed, and I just
Okay.
said I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait on the next till I feel
Yep.
really comfortable now.
Well, and you're exactly. I figured you were going to say this because I think you and I think a lot alike. I've got a mill. I know that zirconia and lithium disilicate, work in the mill. They hold up well. In my career, I've pressed the envelope a couple of times on new crown materials. I mean, even back when I was doing, a lot of things at the lab, and some of those worked. Some of them, after a year or two, nobody would use them because either they lost, the luster, or they broke, or whatever, wore too badly. And because I've got the mill, I figure that if I'm going to do, a couple of crowns, I can do them and know what I got with the mill. What I do with talk to people about the 3D printing crowns is, I'm in Kansas City. I'm a Midwest Catholic guy. And so I make a joke with my patients. I say, like, if you can't afford zirconia, or you can't afford lithium disilicate, my next option is what I call a air quotes purgatory crown. And I tell people it's not temporary, but I don't really know if it's permanent. It's kind of somewhere in that nebulous, range. And so if patients go into it knowing that, maybe I can get 3 years, maybe I can get 5 years if I'm lucky. And that lets me kind of track and see how do they hold up, and what's going on. But I'm in the same boat as you as far as literally saying this is as good as what I can do with the mill. Um, I think we'll get there. I just don't know that we're there yet. And the other thing I love about printing things is with these purgatory materials like Sculpture 2.0, is that, if you've got a complicated case, you can print the temporaries in that material and then let the patients wear it for a while and see, you know, do I have, the vertical right? Do I have the centric right? Or you mentioned earlier about, cosmetics, and some people that want to change their smile can be really picky. And it's so much easier to do it in a resin that you can then alter a little bit if they don't like something. And then, scan the final result and then just duplicate that. But working that all out in a material that is more purgatory, I think it's smart, because the last thing you want to do, and I've had to do it, is do a complicated case and then the patient's unhappy with it for whatever reason. You cut it off and start over. Um, it's frustrating. It's a little embarrassing. It's certainly not a moneymaker. And
No.
so I like the idea of being able to put things in there that I know are going to hold up, and then let them get used to it. And then if they love it after 3 weeks, or if they want to, alter it a little bit, let them wear that for a period of time and see how they like that. And then when they're at that point where they're like, this is what I want, then you just rescan that, hit the button, or mill it, or whatever, and you've got it all worked out ahead of time. So that's where I am.
Another trick, it just sort of made me think that you can like use
Yeah.
with the Sculpture 2.0 resin from PacDent is if you're wanting to do a case presentation on a big case,
Hmm.
you can make shell like snap-on smile type stuff so that when they come in for the case presentation, you can let them wear that and say, well, this is where we think we can get you close to this, and that sells
It's
a lot of
beautiful.
bigger cases. It really does.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That's really smart, because it's, even with the technology we've got, and even, patients can look on a monitor, and you can say, okay, this is what you look like today, this is what you're going to look like later. It's not the same as feeling it in your mouth, or actually seeing it when somebody hands you a mirror and you smile. So
Right.
I got to start doing that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, yeah, and we use Blue Sky Plan software for that. I'm sure that the others can do it because they're more robust, but it's easy enough in Blue Sky.
Well, and, I love Blue Sky just from the point of view that you don't have to, at least in my experience with them, you only paid them when you actually needed a file. So
Right.
you can use that software. It's still that way, right?
Oh yeah, and let me tell you what else that we have found that's real interesting is the uh, the crown module in Blue Sky is still free. So we, even though 3Shape and ExoCAD can make beautiful crowns, the Blue Sky crowns are really good,
Right.
especially in the posterior. So we're a lot of times just using Blue Sky, and it's totally free for that export, and then we mill it. So we have
Wow.
zero cost.
That's that's huge. And like I said, it's one thing, you think, okay, I got to buy this software for however many thousands of dollars. They're not cheap. Then I got to spin myself up and learn how to use it. I mean, you can the thing I love about Blue Sky is you can download it and you can tinker with it. I didn't know the crowns were still free. So that's a great piece of info right there. But just, not thinking about, oh, now, I've got this. I got to really dive in. I got to figure this thing out as fast as possible because I need to get the ROI out of this investment. You can just kind of use it. And then when you're ready to go, go. But you haven't got this big upfront cost on it. And I think it's cool too. Blue Sky is owned by a couple of practitioners that actually know what doctors are doing and what doctors are needing. And there's no disconnect in that whole thing of a software engineer's making something and then the dentist is like, it's a little kludgy because I don't work this way or whatever, because there's dentists involved in it. I think it just helps them know more what we want.
Yeah, in fact, Blue Sky's a great software. The only thing that I don't think that they do a good job on, and I don't even think you can do this. Maybe if you ever get Corey on here, he'll explain it. But the
Okay.
All on X stuff is the only thing. That's what really pushed me to get 3Shape and ExoCAD is because I couldn't do the All on X stuff in Blue Sky. But other
Okay.
than that, it's a great software. Other than that,
It's cool story about Corey. Um, when Blue Sky came out with the guided endo module, where you get like a surgical guide to do endo. I don't know if I was the first one that did that, but I know it was early on in the process. And I had a I had a gentleman that needed endo through a bridge that we hadn't done, and the teeth were tipped at precarious angles under the abutments. And Corey made me a guide, that I could snap on there, and then it oriented, off of the cone beam. It oriented it so that I knew exactly. It took me right where I needed to go with no worries of perfect and stuff. And he did it. I was talking to Blue Sky about it, and they were like, "Yeah, we're thinking about making this available. We'll have Corey make you one." And like the next day, it showed up. I was like, "Jiminy, this is good." So I definitely got to get him on here. He is a genius with this stuff.
yeah, you won't be disappointed. But I don't know if you may want to space it out. You may not want too many people with this same accent on your show that back to back.
Hey, um, Ben Kellum and Brian Correa by
Oh,
chance?
oh man, Transcend over in Huntsville. Ben is
Yeah,
from Tupelo, Mississippi, which is where, that's the big town. We go 45 minutes to go to the movies to Tupelo, where I'm from. So yeah, I know Ben, and man, they're great. Brian's great. I took a course over there right after COVID, really. And Corey was down there too lecturing. It was those three guys doing the lecture, and Corey made the comment from stage. He said, I hope nobody in this room needs to take an elementary 3D printing course. And I'm like, well, okay, Corey. I'm thinking that not only do I probably still need to take one, but I actually teach them now. So, okay, I understand that your brain's past it, but I bet 80% plus dentists
right.
have not gotten there yet. So, but yeah, those guys are doing great
Yeah,
work,
that's
charity work, man. And that's we do the Mission of Mercy stuff. I should probably talk to Ben about what
mhm.
we could do sometime together because I love doing the mission type stuff. Absolutely.
Well, and I actually thought about them when you were telling the mission story because that's such a great service for people. And the way they're doing things, and just so everybody knows, they've both been guests already. So I've talked to them. I've known them for, I don't know, probably at least 5 years, and I'm always impressed with what they're doing. But I thought of them when you were talking about uh, the Mission of Mercy stuff that you did in making dentures in a day, because the I think one of the things that 3D printing can do for us is to allow people to get their lives back without a massive investment. I mean, not everybody can shop at Neiman Marcus. Some people have to go to Walmart. They don't have a choice. And if they're putting off care and thinking to themselves, okay, I may have 5 grand for a world-class denture in 10 years. Well, how are they supposed to function until then? And I love that you're doing that. I love what Ben and Brian are doing too, is giving people their lives back, um, who can't afford to do anything else. I mean, sometimes life just hits you. Sometimes your lightning is struck by, or your office is struck by lightning, and you didn't do anything to make that happen. You didn't contribute to it, but it happened and you got to deal with it. So, being able to cut costs and help people and doing discounted care, free care, hats off to you, man. I love the fact that you're doing that.
Oh well, hey man, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's just you get a kick out of it. It's not like you're not doing it. I guess you are doing it
Hmm.
for the goodness of your heart sometimes, but boy, it is so you get so much back from it. It's almost like you're getting paid. It's just not in money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you change people's lives, and you never know. It's the old drop a rock in the water and the waves go out. You don't know where those people are going to go and what they're going to do and what good things they're going to do for somebody because you did something nice for them. I mean, it's just an exponential thing. And I think we in the profession need to do more of that. We do a lot. Not to say we're not, but I would love to see more people get involved in doing those kind of things like you were doing.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with making money, and there's certainly nothing wrong with giving away stuff. Also, I mean, both those things can coexist at the same time.
Yeah, we walk that tightrope between profitability and expenses, or income and expenses, but helping people is good too. I mean, if you're making enough money, if you can survive giving a couple of things away, um, why not? I just think that's kind of what we're supposed to do. At least that's my opinion on it. So you came back from COVID and you'd signed up for all of these. I think you said 20 PPO plans. Did When you came back and started that, did it ramp up slowly for you, or did once your name was on those lists, did it just explode and you hung on for the ride?
Well, so that was back in 2009 that I signed up for the 20 PPOs, and so
Oh,
yeah,
okay. I got the timeline wrong. Sorry about that.
yeah, so yeah, that was. I mean, yeah, it was like pretty soon. Within a year, we were bursting at the seams. Yeah, COVID's when I started going the
Okay.
other direction.
Okay. Okay. Which I think was smart. You had a nice chance to break and get over things. And kind of get your things set up. I love the color coding of the stuff in your office. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, so yeah, so in 2008, I actually started. That was the first thing I got to lecture on in dentistry. I had color coded my room setups. So what we were trying to do to be able to see those PPO patients is I said, okay, how do I duplicate what Henry Ford did for cars. How can I do that for dentistry?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, gosh, Henry Ford was making either Model A's or Model T's every time, so it's hard to duplicate that because our end product is so different. Fill in, root canal,
Yep.
extraction, it's all different. And so I started thinking, what could be an end product that I could replicate every single time? And what we came up with was the product that we could do every time for every patient was a completely clean room ready to be set up for a unique procedure. So we busted our tail trying to get our time down on cleaning up rooms, and then setting up the room is where we really gained our efficiencies. And so for the room setup, so like in my office, when everything's clean out of the room, there's nothing like, we don't even have stationary cabinetry. We have carts that are the shape of, countertops that we roll in.
Yeah,
So we would just have the dental chair and a couple of rolling carts. And so to fit on top of those rolling carts, we have these laminated posters. They're really thick lamination. They're really held up well. And they're different colors for different procedures. Like yellow is a resin, blue is an extraction, black is cementation. I don't know. There's a bunch of colors, right? And so we
sure.
would grab that laminated poster that's the shape of the countertop. We'll put it down. It's sterile because it's been wiped down previously. And then there are these little
Right,
colored blocks on top of that. And so this poster, which is primarily a background color of, say, blue, has different colored
right.
boxes on top of it. And each box has the name of an item that's supposed to go on that box. So now the assistants can get all the supplies and they know exactly where to put the supply every single time. And then once they think the room is set up perfectly, all they have to do is look at the color coded template, we call it. And if something's missing, it'll tell you what's
Yeah,
missing. And so that way, my goal was always to um, have room setups so the doctor could walk in, go to work, and the assistant never have to leave the room. So you'd have zero downtime. That was my goal, and I think I was the first person that came up with that. There's some other people now, but we started lecturing on it in 2008, and so there's probably a bunch of dentists out there that came through my office that have those, but not enough that it's mainstream, but there's a few people that took it to heart.
that's really smart. Because we all, I mean, gee, I mean, if you do dentistry, the last thing, well, maybe not the last thing you want to see, but one of the things you don't want to see is the assistant get up and leave. Because that
Mm.
means, something isn't there. And it's just downtime. Sometimes what they need is something that you need right that minute. Um, and you being able to walk in and look down and see every spot covered with what needs to be there, then you can just sit down and lock in on what you've got to do. And you don't have to, oh, I'm going to need this, but maybe I can finagle it this way and not have to have that instrument that we don't have or
Right.
whatever. I like that. I like the way because everything changes, like you said, procedure wise. I mean, every prep is different, but the idea of starting with a very clean, system and then building on top of that, that's really smart. That's really smart. That's a great engineering thing that you came up with.
That probably is a throwback to the engineering
Yeah,
mindset, is my guess.
yeah.
Uh, I haven't had as many good ideas since, but that was a really good idea back in 2008.
Well, you know what? We can all be profound. It's the great people are the ones that are profound all the time. But I think people like you and me, when, if I swing often enough, I'm bound to make contact with the ball eventually. And some of those will probably go a long way. So I really like that. I would think that with nowadays, especially, I don't know how it is in your part of the world because it's a small town and I'm sure most people know each other, but in bigger cities, staff turnover has just been bing, bing, bing. People will be a dental assistant one day and working at Target the next because they can make $1 an hour more or whatever. So I would think that when you bring people in to spin them up as a dental assistant, having all of that, this is how you do it, even if they're not well versed in what things are or what the names are or whatever, I mean, they can learn that pretty quickly because they know this is exactly what Dr. Chris needs.
Yeah, so years ago, so when we were training new people, we created a bunch of standard operating procedure uh, checklists and job
Hmm.
descriptions. And so, boy, now with AI, goodness gracious,
Yeah.
you can create those in a minute. But back in
Yeah.
the day, it took a lot of time. And so, yeah, if you're having to train an assistant, and I have people come through here all the time that are trying to get hours to graduate dental assistant school, and so. It really helps them get up to speed because really they just have to learn the color and learn what the name of things are, and then and then they've got their checklist to go down. When they're just starting out, they check everything off, and then they know they're ready. And I would say it cuts down the training time immensely. And I didn't realize what a blessing that I had. I always figure living out here in the boondocks, it's definitely the toughest place to practice in America. But I was listening to a
Yeah,
podcast by Howard Farran this last weekend, driving home from Dallas, and Howard's, he's talking about, the rural dentists are getting ready. They're probably going to be the dentists that boom in the next decade
right.
because of so many challenges in the cities. So many dentists have flocked to the cities, and now
Yep.
the staff overhead has gotten ridiculous. And so we've been lucky. We don't really, since the fire, we haven't had much turnover at all. So we've been very lucky.
Well, and I think that goes back to you as well. I mean, people stay usually because of relationships more so than money. So if you treat them well, I think that's a big part of the game. It's kind of a funny little trivial thing here for you. If you look at the dental school class composite from the year I graduated, because of alpha, they had everybody in alphabetical order, like pretty much in the center of that photo, there's Ferran and Fluky sitting side by side. So I've
So
known
you went to school with
Howard.
him? I didn't
Yep.
know that.
Yeah. We met, I graduated 87. So we met in 83. And yeah, I've known him ever since. It's kind of a funny thing.
Are y'all real close? You talk a lot?
Oh, we text and email some, not just tons and tons. We're both so doggone busy and
Well,
everything,
that
but
guy.
I do keep in touch with him.
Oh, let me tell you. So I was a kid, right? I just started my own practice 1999 September and March of 2000. So I'm 25 years old, don't know my tail from a hole in the ground. I go to
Right.
Destin, Florida to Woody Oaks Spring Break
Yeah.
Cemetery, and Howard is the keynote speaker. And I have never met anyone like him. And he's up there lecturing, and he took a six pack up there and he's pounding beers while he's lecturing. He's like, "Oh yeah, you guys, these guys don't know." He's using colorful language and just
Yeah.
he's calling out people in the room that are like famous, and I'm like, "Holy cow!" And so, and I'm like, "This is so." Anyway, I didn't get to meet him there, but I was like, "This guy's amazing." So then I was at a lecture in Houston, Texas, the 2 years later, and I was delivering a 1 hour lecture on some research that I'd done with a guy named Scott Perkins, Operation Endo, right? And so
Yep. I
Howard had
remember that.
come to that. Howard was on the front row, and so I get up there to do, and this is the first time I ever stepped on a lecture stage, right? Now I've done it a bunch, but back then, zero.
Yep.
So I'm up there and and this guy, Howard Friend, who by this time I've read the 30-day MBA. I've just listened to his cassettes over and over.
Right.
His book, I've got it highlighted and marked. Anyway, this guy's like a hero of mine. And so I'm up there trying to do this lecture, but I'm terrible. The subject material is we're talking about dissolution times of sodium hypochlorite in tissue.
Right.
It's just so boring. And Howard, all of us, I just look up and Howard is dead asleep. His head is back. He's dead asleep. Another 10 minutes go by and he starts like snoring like a
Oh no.
rhinoceros. And it's only 50 people in the lecture hall, and everybody in here knows that I have put Howard Farran, the famous Howard Farran, to sleep. And so anyway, I get through with my tail between my legs. I'm through lecturing. I'm trying to crawl off the stage, get my microphone, say, "Okay, thanks everybody."
Yeah.
Howard, I did this. He snaps awake. He then he stands up. He starts doing this giant loud clap. And then he turns around and he's like, "Come on, everybody. Chris has been up here for an hour busting his tail. Everybody stand up. Give him a standing ovation." I said, "What in the world is going on here?" And anyway, so everybody like stands up and they're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, I felt a lot better about it. In fact, I would probably blame Howard for my desire to do dental lecturing now because that was, because of that experience. Anyway, that night we all go to dinner as a group. Howard pulls me to the side. He's like, "Ah, Chris, I don't really drink anymore." And I'm like, so back then, I guess he drank in 2000 and 2001 he didn't. I don't know. But he's like, "You don't look like a drinker. Come hang out with me." So I spent all night with him telling me the profundities of what he thought about dentistry and the future and everything else. And so Howard Friend and has just had a huge impact on the way I've practiced forever. And anyway, he just emailed me this week. I'd emailed him and told him about the podcast I listened to, and he is who has time? He sends back these page-long emails every time I
Yeah,
send anything, and it's just like what an awesome guy. Thankful I met
yeah.
him. Now that I know you and him are buddies. Now I'm also gonna like you a whole lot, John. So
Yeah,
if I
he
didn't already,
is.
right?
Yeah, he's a character. He's a character. He's always good for some laughs. And he's been such a forward-thinking force in in dentistry. I don't know if you know this story, but it's kind of a cool one. When he was in school, so he grew up in Wichita, Kansas, and his family owned, I don't know if there was more than one, but I know they were in the restaurant business. And he wanted to go to Phoenix when he graduated. And in his apartment, he had like a map of the Phoenix area with little colored push pins in it. And he had mapped every dentist in the area. He knew exactly where they all were. And that was how he was determining where to build an office, because he didn't want to have, you don't want to build an office right next door to somebody else, especially when you're getting started. And so he figured out in his calculating way like the ideal place to put his first office. And then, I mean, he was so well prepared for that. I was like, what do I do? And he already had it like all lined out in his mind and organized. And he hit the ground running, man. He is a force. He is a force, and he's got a ton of info for folks. So it's funny how life works, that 6 degrees of separation thing. Who would think that, a guy from Mississippi and a guy from Kansas, would both be buddies with a guy with a guy from Phoenix that's like a rock star. So that's a really cool story.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. UMKC then, right? So that's where you went to
Yep,
school? The
yep. Grew
Kangaroos.
up in Yes, it's the only, at least when I graduated, it was the only college in the United States with a kangaroo for a mascot.
Yeah,
And the
that's
original
good.
kangaroo was drawn by Walt Disney.
Are you serious? Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Didn't know that.
yeah. There's some picture somewhere in one of the administration buildings of he drew Mickey Mouse and the kangaroo shaking hands, and that's like a big deal. But Disney grew up in Kansas City and kind of
Okay.
started here, and yeah, he was. I don't know if he came up with the idea of the kangaroo, but he drew the first one, which is kind of cool. But I'm a lot like you in that um, the office is 10 minutes from the house I grew up in. So
Uh,
I never had any desire to go anywhere else. I went to undergrad in Kansas City. I went to dental in Kansas City, and I've just stayed in the area. I live in Kansas now, but the office is in Missouri. So I mean, Kansas City's right on the state line, and so I've been here my whole life. I've never had a desire to go anywhere else. Kind of funny.
well,
And
yeah,
you
but
left
at
and then
least you're
came
from a
right
big
back to
city,
your
right?
boyhood home.
That's right.
Well, true, true. Well, Chris, we've been at it for over an hour now, so I guess we should wrap it up and let the editing folks do the genius that they do. But anything as we wind down, anything you want to say, any point you want to make, anything like that, final thought to leave people with?
Well, what I would say is, yes. Do I do a lot of 3D printing? Do I have a lot of high technology? Yes, I do. Am I a geek? Totally. But the whole purpose is not to just do the cool stuff. The reason I got into it was really just independence, autonomy is very important to me, and so I like to practice the way I want to
Yep,
practice. Technology is just a great tool to let you do more stuff quickly in your own house to do
yep,
it. Um, and so that's why I think technology's got its place. But I hope that dentistry takes a little bit of a turn away from, not that I'm hating on corporations or DSOs or whatever, but man,
right.
I just don't love the way dentistry's going right now. With in that direction, and anything you can do to make your practice more autonomous and more independent, man, I'm all for it. And if
Yep.
3D printing can help you do some cases today that'll help people and for a lower cost and lower your overhead, then absolutely get into it. But anything you can do to make your practice more independent, I hope you do it. And I hope that I'm practicing long enough to see dentistry turn
Yep.
back on the other side of the pendulum. And hey, you said I could plug my book. So if you
Yeah,
happen to
please do.
want to learn, if you want to learn, this book is 3D printing in dentistry. You can get it on Amazon. And I tried to write it in a way that it walks a dentist who doesn't even know about 3D printing all the way through how to get into 3D printing. And I even put a glossary in there because when I'm getting into new technology, I always wonder what all the words mean. So I put all the words in a glossary.
Right.
So I hope it's a good resource for a bunch of practices. And if you want to grab one of those, I would feel honored.
That's cool. That's cool. Everybody needs a roadmap, man, and once again, you're a forward thinker, so thanks for doing that. But yep, go to Amazon, folks. You want to know anything about this? This guy's been there and he's left you breadcrumbs to follow. So head over to Amazon and grab the book. Well, Chris, thank you very much. This has been great conversation. Uh, I know I'm going to have you back at some point. We'll do this again. We can just cover some more stuff. So, everybody, I'm Dr. John Fluke. This is the Technology Evangelist podcast sponsored by Medidenta Digital. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
All right.